Why the woman who understands everyone can end up alone. Have you ever met a woman who could tell something was wrong with you before you even said a word? She notices the change in your voice. She notices the smile that doesn't reach your eyes. She can sense when you're pretending to be okay. She remembers the smallest details about what hurts you, what scares you, and what you secretly wish for. People feel strangely safe around her. They tell her their deepest secrets. They cry in front of her. They call her when life falls apart. And yet, when her own life becomes difficult, her phone is often silent. No group waiting for her, no friend randomly checking in, no one asking, "How are you really doing?" So here's the question that seems almost impossible. How can a woman who understands people so deeply end up feeling completely alone? The answer isn't simply that she's shy. It isn't because she hates people, and it certainly isn't because nobody wants her around. The psychology is much deeper. And if you're an empathic woman, or someone who has always felt different in relationships, this may explain something about your life that you've never been able to put into words. Let's begin with the way she experiences other people. For her, emotions aren't always something she simply observes. They can feel almost physical. When someone around her becomes anxious, she may immediately feel tension in her own body. When someone is grieving, their sadness can affect her long after the conversation ends. When someone is angry, she may sense the atmosphere before anyone else notices the conflict. And when someone is genuinely happy, she can become genuinely happy with them. She doesn't simply hear people's words. She studies the emotion underneath those words. She notices pauses, expressions, body language, changes in energy, the things people say without actually saying them. This level of emotional awareness can make her incredibly comforting to others. People often feel understood around her, and that creates a strange pattern. They come to her when they need someone. They tell her everything. They ask for advice. They seek comfort. They feel lighter after talking to her. But once their crisis is over, they return to their normal lives, their friends, their relationships, their weekend plans, their ordinary conversations, and she returns to silence. This is where her loneliness becomes complicated, because she doesn't necessarily lack human contact. What she lacks is emotional reciprocity. She can have conversations with dozens of people and still feel like nobody truly knows her. Why? Because ordinary friendships often contain a certain amount of social performance. People show their best sides. They hide uncomfortable thoughts. They avoid difficult subjects. They talk about work, entertainment, relationships, plans, and everyday problems. And there's nothing inherently wrong with that. Most friendships naturally operate this way. But a deeply empathic person often wants something beyond the surface. She wants to know what you actually fear, what you secretly regret, what keeps you awake at night, what you're pretending not to care about, what you're too embarrassed to admit. She wants the conversation underneath the conversation, and that's where she can begin feeling disconnected. Because many people aren't comfortable living at that emotional depth. They may open up once, they may share something vulnerable, but eventually they retreat. Not necessarily because they dislike her. Sometimes they simply aren't ready for the level of honesty she naturally brings into a relationship. So another painful pattern begins. She connects intensely with someone. She gives her attention. She remembers what matters to them. She listens without judgment. She makes them feel seen. For a while, the relationship feels extraordinary. Then, slowly, the other person becomes less available. Messages become less frequent. Conversations become lighter.
the emotional closeness disappears, and she is left wondering, what did I do wrong? After experiencing this enough times, she may reach a dangerous conclusion. Maybe I'm too intense. Maybe I care too much. Maybe I'm too emotional. Maybe I'm too serious. Maybe people don't want this much closeness. And eventually, she begins changing herself. She stops reaching out first. She stops revealing everything. She waits before trusting. She watches instead of participating. She becomes emotionally cautious. But here's the paradox. The very strategy she uses to protect herself can make her loneliness worse. Because when she hides her depth, she also hides the quality that makes genuine connection possible. She becomes harder to know. People sense the distance, so they stay on the surface. And the surface is exactly where she feels most disconnected. This creates a psychological loop. She wants deep connection. Deep connection has hurt her before, so she protects herself. Her protection prevents vulnerability. Without vulnerability, genuine intimacy becomes difficult. And the lack of intimacy confirms her belief that nobody truly understands her. So she withdraws even more. But there's another reason she may avoid people: emotional exhaustion. For someone who constantly monitors the emotions around her, social interaction can require enormous internal processing. Imagine entering a room and unconsciously noticing everyone's mood. Who is uncomfortable? Who is pretending? Who is angry? Who needs reassurance? Who is hiding something? Who is emotionally overwhelmed? While other people are simply having a conversation, she may be processing an entire emotional environment. That's why she can desperately want connection and still need enormous amounts of solitude. She isn't necessarily antisocial. She may actually crave closeness more than most people. But shallow interactions don't always replenish her. They can leave her more drained than before. So, eventually, she begins calculating the cost. If I go out, I'll have to absorb everyone's energy. If I explain myself, I'll probably be misunderstood. If I open up, I'll become attached. If I become attached, I might lose them. And sometimes staying home feels safer. Not because she doesn't want people, but because she doesn't want another connection that leaves her feeling more alone than solitude ever did. And this is only the beginning. Because the deepest problem isn't simply that she feels too much. It's that she has spent so much of her life feeling for everyone else that she may have forgotten how to feel for herself. And that's where the story gets even more revealing. Continue into part 2, because the real reason behind her loneliness may have nothing to do with being too emotional.
Why she feels everyone yet feels unseen. There is a hidden reason why an empathic woman can understand everyone and still feel misunderstood herself. She spends so much time reading other people's emotions that she may slowly lose contact with her own. She notices discomfort, hidden sadness, and unspoken tension. She knows how to calm people when they are overwhelmed. But when someone asks, "What do you need?" she may have no clear answer. For years, her attention has moved outward. She recognizes everyone else's needs before recognizing her own. This is one of the hidden costs of deep empathy. The more carefully she watches everyone else, the easier it becomes to ignore herself. And this becomes painful inside relationships. She gives people emotional safety. She listens without judging. She remembers details. She stays during difficult moments. People trust her because they feel understood. But she often gives emotional attention much more easily than she receives it. Eventually, that imbalance becomes exhausting. She doesn't need perfect equality. She needs evidence that the relationship moves in both directions. This creates one of the deepest contradictions in her life. She notices everyone, but very few people notice her. People see her as strong and emotionally capable. Because she always seems to know what to do, others assume she can handle everything alone. Eventually, she stops expecting support. She processes pain privately. She solves problems alone. She becomes her own emotional safety net. At first, this feels like strength. Over time, it becomes isolation. Because when you stop asking people to be there for you, they may never discover that you needed them. Then, empathy creates another problem: blurred identity. When someone constantly adapts to other people's emotions, personal boundaries can become unclear. She may absorb the moods and opinions of people around her without realizing it. Then, when a relationship ends, the loss can feel enormous. She isn't only missing the person. She may feel as if she has lost part of herself. After enough painful experiences, opening up can stop feeling hopeful and start feeling dangerous. She builds stronger walls and tells herself she doesn't need anyone. Eventually, she becomes the woman who feels everything internally but reveals almost nothing externally. And that creates a specific kind of loneliness. Loneliness isn't always about having nobody around. Sometimes it is about having nobody who witnesses your ordinary life. She doesn't necessarily need more people. She needs the right people. First, she must stop believing that emotional depth is a flaw. But perhaps her depth isn't the problem. Perhaps she has simply been searching for meaningful connection among people who prefer surface-level relationships. Being surrounded by people is not the same as being understood. Second, she must learn to give herself the same attention she gives everyone else. Ask yourself, what am I feeling? What do I need? What is draining me? Her empathy cannot always flow outward. It has to return to her too. Otherwise, she keeps giving from an empty place. Third, not everyone deserves immediate access to her emotions. Trust should be earned through behavior. These actions reveal more than promises. She doesn't need someone who feels exactly as deeply as she does. She needs someone willing to understand and stay when the relationship becomes real. Finally, she must learn the difference between loneliness and solitude. Loneliness feels like rejection. Healthy solitude feels like peace. When she becomes comfortable in her own company, she stops chasing people simply because she fears being alone. She begins choosing relationships from strength instead of desperation. She stops asking, "Who will accept me?" and starts asking, "Who is capable of meeting me with honesty and respect?" But there is one final step. She must allow herself to be seen as a human being. Let someone see her confused. Let someone see her tired. Let someone help her. Real friendship isn't about carrying everyone else. It is about finding someone willing to carry a little weight with you. She doesn't need hundreds of friends. She needs relationships where her sensitivity doesn't have to be hidden, where her honesty isn't considered too much, and where her depth is respected. Maybe she was never too much. Maybe she was simply giving her deepest self to people who didn't know how to hold it. She starts searching for the people with whom she can truly belong. And that may be the real lesson. She doesn't need to feel less. She needs to stop feeling alone in what she feels. If this described you, comment "felt." Subscribe for more psychology, emotional intelligence, human behavior, and deeper insights into relationships. Because the right people won't ask you to become smaller. They will meet you where you are and help you realize that your depth was never the problem.